Chair, we are now live.
Hey, oh, thank you, Wendy. Okay, well, welcome back, members. And we go to agenda item 13, application 2012-34 full, and it's for land south of Chilcombe Cross, Northley. You find it on page 190.
Sorry, Chair, can I
yeah.
just interrupt? Because we've had a break, could we possibly do another roll call? Is that okay?
Oh, yes, of course, Wendy. Yeah. Roll call then. Is everyone,
Thank you, Chair. I'll take the roll call. Councillor Wragg.
Present.
Councillor Chamberlain.
Present.
Councillor Brown.
Present.
Councillor Davey.
Present.
Councillor De Sarum.
Present.
Councillor Gazzard.
Present.
Councillor Howe.
Present.
Councillor Key.
Present.
Councillor McLaughlin.
Present.
Councillor Pook.
Present.
Councillor Pratt.
Present.
Councillor Skinner.
Present.
Councillor Whibley.
Present.
And Councillor Woodward.
Present.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Sarah. Right, agenda item 13, application 2012-34 full, land south of Chilcombe Cross, Northley. We have a speaker, Jem Nichols. Welcome to the meeting, Jem. I wasn't sure whether, I couldn't call you Mr. or Mrs. I guess I wasn't sure what Jem was.
Not for Jeremy to kill a mockingbird.
No. Right. Welcome to the meeting. You will have 3 minutes to speak and you'll be told 30 seconds before the end when your time is coming up. So, Mr. Rose, would you present your case, please?
Thank you, Chair. So, yeah, we've got an application here. Just going to get my screen to work. Thank you. Right, so we've got an application here for application for 6 affordable dwellings as an exception site, just on the outskirts of Northley. It's a departure from the local plan, which I'll explain why, and that's why it's before members today. And it's in the open countryside and in the AONB. And you can see on the screen here the location. The site in red is where the houses are proposed. And some drainage, and then we've got an area here that will be accessible to the public, and then this unusual red line going off there is to do with the drainage to the site. So this is the proposed site layout. The site's approximately, as I say, at the edges of Northley, far away, so it's quite remote. But Honiton, the Honiton closest built up area boundary about 3 miles away. And this application's from the Upper Collie Valley Land Trust. They're the applicant, and you can see on the screen the proposal, the layout. So we've got 6 affordable dwellings here off this little area, this little cul-de-sac area, park into each of the dwellings, and then some more landscaping going in. And you'll see from the photos there's hedge planting to the site already, and you can see the access that's proposed into the site there. And if I just move on, so again, we've got the layout of the site. This hatch in here shows an area of fill on the land, which I'll mention in a minute. And you can see the images of the designs for the dwellings. You can see that there's 2 1-bed bungalows, 3 2-bed dwellings, and 1 3-bed dwelling. And these are the floor plans of the houses that are proposed, that are quite modest in their size and again elevations. So this is the site beyond this fence in this corner of the field, and again this is the access. So sorry, this is a view of the road, so an access will go in through the hedge. Access retains off to the left here to some public space, and it's this site that's in here in the corner. So you can see in the AONB the site will be visible. You'll see in the report that the Community Land Trust or various people have carried out housing needs surveys on the site 2014, 2017, 2019, And on each of those occasions, it's identified a need for at least 6 affordable units in the joint parish of Northleigh, Farway and Southley. You'd also see in the report that 16 sites have been considered by the Land Trust to place these affordable housings on, and they've in partnership, and they've got an affordable housing provider on board, and in partnership with that, they've decided that this is their most appropriate site, and as I say, put forward that the planning application. So site in off the right. This is, so it's the field where this photo is taken from, and you can see back towards houses that are already on the site. So the site's down here, and you can see runs of existing houses on the approach to the site. So whilst strategy 27 of the local plan supports community-led development like this, we're reliant on strategy 35 of the local plan, which deals with exception sites. And that says that to be appropriate as an exception site, development should be physically and well related to a village. This site isn't, for reasons that I'll come on to. Well, that's actually because the parish group doesn't have any range of services or facilities. So the group of parishes here, no one of them and themselves would meet the criteria of strategy 35. So we've got this unusual situation where the local planners joined these three parishes together, said it would support exception site housing, but only where they're close to a range of services and facilities. And those services and facilities, none of those three parishes have got. So immediately any proposal would fall foul of strategy 35. I think it's a bit of a quirk or an unforeseen circumstance of the policy. Hence it's a departure and before you today. But it's clear from the housing needs survey that's gone on that there is a need for affordable housing here, and the Collie Valley Land Trust have done a very good job of going through a site search, picking out which is the most appropriate site, and as I say, and I've come down on the side of this site. So whichever site they would have chosen in this parish group wouldn't have met strategy 35. So they've chosen this site for a number of reasons. And we're supportive of the scheme on the basis of the need for the affordable housing that goes on the site. And as you'll see in the report, that whilst it's inevitable that there will be some visual impact on the AONB by placing 6 affordable dwellings in there, with the planting that's proposed and the mitigation over time and subject to conditions over time, those dwellings will integrate themselves well enough into the landscape. And you can see the landscape officer has been involved in this application and a previous application to ensure that those landscape impacts are acceptable and minimised. So despite the policy situation, there's a need for these 6 units. There's a benefit from them, and we're satisfied that over time they can have an acceptable visual impact on the AONB. I mentioned contaminated land. The previous parts of the site are a landfill. And that has to be removed with the topsoil cleaned up, and the contaminated land officer came up with a condition that's in front of you. Since the report's been published, though, we've received further information, and the contaminated land officer has agreed that in light of that information, the wording of that condition can be amended to reflect that latest information. So if members were to grant consent, I'd be grateful if they would also give agreement to amending that contaminated land condition to reflect the information the applicant sent in. There will be some loss of trees, but there's new planting proposed and new wildlife and mitigation enhancement that's also proposed. The drainage has been agreed with Devon County Council as the lead authority on that. And as I said, they're keeping the remainder of the field around the site for public access and use. So the site's in the AONB, it will have some visual impact, and it's not close to a range of services, so that's contrary to strategy 35. But there is a clear need for affordable housing here, and wherever the affordable housing were to go in those joint parishes, it's going to have a visual impact and be departed from or away from a range of services and facilities. So given the need, given the planting mitigation, given the site search that the applicants gone through to come up with this acceptable site, and due to the lack of any other harm, we're recommending approval subject to the legal agreement to secure the affordable housing, and if we could, subject to that change to the contaminated land condition. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rose. Jem Nichols, would you like to begin speaking? You have 3 minutes and you'll be told 30 seconds before the end when your time's coming up. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair and Committee. My name is Jem Nichols and I'm one of the directors of the Upper Collie Valley Community Land Trust. The chairman of our CLT is Willie Rich, who is also chair of the Northleigh Parish Council. The remainder of the board are all local residents. Our not-for-profit CLT steering group was set up in 2014 with the sole aim of providing affordable housing in and for the local community. Over a period of years between 2014 and 2017, the CLT undertook surveys of the local housing needs and various potential sites. And with the support of the local villages of Farway, Northleigh and Southley, we ascertained that there was a real need for new affordable housing, as all the existing stock in the local parishes is fully occupied. As a result, in 2017, the CLT formalised and a board was established. We appointed Wessex Community Land Trust Projects to project manage and guide the CLT in the grant applications with East Devon, and also to engage with town teen housing as future partners to build the 6 affordable homes. Teen was chosen because of their experience of delivering complex rural schemes across South and East Devon and working with and in partnership with community land trusts. A great deal of time and research went into the many options for the site selection, and our chosen criteria were based on location, cost and ownership. The Chilcombe Cross site is owned by Northleigh Parish Council, having been bought by them in the late 90s from East Devon District Council. The land cost was therefore inexpensive in comparison to other potential options of development land, and the EDDC were fully aware of the ownership history of the land. The site is also in close proximity to existing local affordable housing, which is fully occupied. There is a covenant on the land preventing commercial development, which East Devon have agreed to waive for this affordable housing usage. The CLT believes that the eventual residents of the 6 houses should live and work in the local area and have some form of connection to the 3 local parishes. So in conclusion, the board has worked tirelessly for many years to enable this project to come to fruition, and consequently the board would like, of the CLT, would wholeheartedly recommend this project for approval. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nichols. Right, now we come to the ward members. Councillor Paul Arnott, is he here?
Thank you, Chair, very much indeed. Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you to Mr. Rose for such a comprehensive report, and to Jem Nichols for his advocacy there. Just to declare a small personal interest, Chair, I am known to Jem Nichols and I have had one conversation with him about this application. So my ward stretches from Colliford and Colliton, which are effectively town or village settings, all the way out into these relatively far-flung parts, such as Northleigh, Southley, Farway, and so on. And I think Mr. Rose has dealt extremely well with the cleft stick that these communities find themselves in, which is, yes, they are in AONBs, and yes, ideally, to qualify as an exception site, they should have the wonders of a local shop and all the rest of it on hand. But these are effectively very small communities. Northleigh is sustainable, I think, in many ways, not least because Farway is part of the same area and it has a primary school. Northleigh also has a very active social life, a village hall, film shows are shown there and so on. It has a very marked sense of community. I think the envelope that is provided by community land trusts to help us to depart from established strategies is very useful indeed. I think we could hear there from what Mr. Rose has said and from Mr. Nichols about the amount of work, voluntary work that's gone in to try and identify sites over many years. So I'm very much in favour of this. But I would ask committee, please, just to dot some I's and cross some T's as well. I'm sure this is the case, but I hope the S106 agreement ensures that these homes are permanently for rent, and that they are in some way tied to people who've got a proven relationship with the locality. I would also ask, I can see there are quite a lot of hedges around there as well, so anything that can be done to help protect them would be very useful. Thank you for letting me speak, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Arnott. Councillor Helen Parr, please.
Thank you, and thank you very much to Mr. Rose and certainly to Mr. Nichols for his very good explanation of how the Community Land Trust worked. And they have been in search of the site for several years, and this site is absolutely, in my view, the site to go for, because, as has been said, it's owned by the parish council. It's right next to EDDC's housing. If Mr. Rose could show us the slides again, you can see that it actually is adjoining the Northley there. It's right next to EDDC's housing, and there is, as has been explained, there is a clear need. It's been there for years, and this will enable local families to live in the village, and for these families to stay in the village, hopefully, because it's a very suitable mix of housing, which the Housing Strategy Officer supports, because it will mean that housing is there for families to grow. And the houses are going to be allocated through the Devon online, can't remember the name of it, but it will be, these houses will be for locals only, and it will serve the need in the 3 parishes. As has been said, it's not possible for the application to meet Strategy 35, but it is in accordance with Strategy 27, which refers to community-led housing. This is community-led housing, and it's an 100% affordable housing proposal. So I think District Council absolutely should support this. And in particular, it is likely that it will help Farway Primary School, which would welcome more children. Certainly, I support this application, and I would ask the committee to. The landscape officer has proposed mitigation because the houses will be visible, but the housing, the conditions will cover the 3 concerns that people might have, which are the visibility of the site in the AONB and the fact that there is contaminated land there. I think there is no objection from highways, there's no objection from environmental health, there's no parish council objection. So I think this is a marvellous application, and we should support, or it should be supported by the District Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Parr. I'll bring in Councillor Pook next, in view of his involvement with a similar scheme, I think, in his patch. Councillor Pook.
Okay, well, thank you very much for bringing me in now. I was going to talk anyway, and you're not at all surprised I'm totally in favour of this. I think all these community-led developments should be supported. And the only thing I would say is, and it's to the applicant, is when they're looking at their S106 and their allocation, make sure they got a local allocations policy, which allows for local connection to be a first priority, and then the housing need, and then it goes to Devon Home Choice, and for the housing need to go right down to E, because this is very important. Quite often you'll have houses which, or people in accommodation, they're not homeless, but they're paying high amounts to stay by families, but they're not and then eligible for a house on Devon Home Choice. It makes a mockery of the fact of trying to keep communities together and the communities support each other through family connections. So post this meeting, I'm more than happy to have a chat about the conditions and how to make sure that that goes is all sorted out. Since you've asked me, I'd like to propose approval of this. Just propose approval.
And I'll
Thank
second
you.
that, Chair.
That's Councillor McLaughlin seconding.
Yes,
Would you like to
yes,
speak
please,
on it?
Chair. No, I just would completely concur with Councillor Pook. I think it's a fabulous scheme. So rarely heard of. 100% affordable housing. It's just fantastic scheme. So I approve of it totally.
Right, thank you.
Thank you.
There are other speakers. Unless you have something new to add, I'll go to Councillor Key. Do you have anything to add to that?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. The thing that I have been all for affordable housing ever since I've been on the council for the last 20 odd years. And I think this is a very, very good proposal. A couple of things that does concern me is the fact that there are 2 proposed 1-bedroom dwellings, which are not really what I class for affordable families, because you're not going to get somebody there with children in a single bedroom one. That was one thing. The other thing, it could help Farway School, but Farway is a couple of miles away. So is Offwell, and Colleton's not very far. So it may help school, it may not. As with regard to the planting around, yes, okay, that's acceptable. But when you actually look at the picture that's on the screen now, there doesn't seem to be very much camouflaging them. And so I wouldn't have thought that the planting would have been too particular, really. But if it's going to happen, that's fine, that's great. But yes, I'm all for affordable housing, and I think it's a good project and well worth supporting. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Skinner.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Chair. Yes, I was looking at really interesting. I think the first thing I might need to say, Chair, is that I just realised that, as it was suggested before, that it was Willie Rich. I think Willie, I knew Willie from many years ago. We went to college. We went young farmers. So I'm just going to make that. I'm assuming it's the same. It's the same Willie. So I will just make that declaration, just in case it is. And if you look at Madam Chair and members, if you look at what the recommendations the officers have put in and the comments put in. It says this is an unusual situation, as in most circumstances, at least one of the settlements with a group of parishes would have the necessary services for consideration under Strategy 35 of the local plan. But that is not the case here. It goes on to say, is therefore with this in mind, are very much on balance that the benefits of the proposal in delivering the affordable housing needs of the grouped parishes that would otherwise go unmet are considered to outweigh the identified environmental impacts of the scheme. I think it's fantastic that we thought outside of the box. I think it's a fantastic scheme that's come forward that the CLT have put together. I'm really pleased to hear that members are really on board with this. And sometimes there is no policy that absolutely fits everybody. And I think the ward members being on board, parish council being on board has been fantastic. And I fully support this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Pratt.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to speak about the fact that the land is AONB. There will be an issue with the visual impact of these properties being constructed there. However, I have noted in the report of the landscape officer, there's considerable information there about the mitigation that will be required in regard to tree planting and the landscaping generally of the site. There are a number of views towards the site which would be affected if this mitigation doesn't take place. So I note also that Chris Rose, in the conditions he has attached to the matter, he has got there conditions 5 and 6 which relate to landscaping, and long as those are in, and I think the site is reasonably well protected. It's not the first time that affordable homes have been erected on AONB land, and I'm all in support of this matter.
Thank you. Councillor Gazzard.
Oops, nothing new to add, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Davey.
Yeah, there seems to be a well-designed group of houses that is clearly serving a local need, and I would hope that local people will be working nearby, so it shouldn't add too much to travel. I'm absolutely delighted to see that although they're affordable homes, they have solar panels on them, because by definition, people living in affordable homes are also on low incomes, and that is going to help. So I'm very pleased to see that. I don't know that the issue that was identified, I don't know if it was the tree officer or the environment officer, that the trees shown in the plan are really much too close to each other. And he also identified a group of 3 trees that appear to have disappeared from the plan, but were not proposed for removal. So I think there's 1 or 2 errors there that need tidying up. I would hope that this settlement could possibly even grow eventually to support some services. I also note it's close to the East Devon Way, which is to be welcomed, because that does encourage walking and at least leisure use. One thing I would say about the lack of shopping facilities in the area, it'd be great if the residents were to consider a community shop or a community food co-op as well, which is a good way of kind of economizing on the number of trips generated by food shopping. So there are alternatives there to be considered. So I think it's a really exciting proposal, and I wish them every success.
Thank you. Right, Councillor Pook, you want to come back?
Yes, I can use this as my summing up to say, yeah, that's a proposal, but also just to refer to one of the comments, I think as Councillor Skinner said about Councillor Key about 1-bedroom houses not being for affordable. There's plenty of old people who need to move out of a larger house but can't afford to move into something else. So 1-bedroom house is perfect, as well as younger people wanting to move out of the family home and not being able to afford into it. So 1-bedrooms are entirely feasible and necessary for affordable housing. And the other thing is, yeah, beer is 100% affordable as well. So I support this application, and hope the committee does as well.
Thank you. And lastly, Councillor McLaughlin.
Yes, Chair, sorry. Mr. Rose, who rarely asks anything of us, did ask when we first started this, if it was proposed to accept that we amend the contamination land conditions. Is that right? I'm not sure what that means, but I think he did state that.
Right. Mr. Rose, can you answer that?
Yes, thank you. So last week we had further comments come back, or the applicant submitted further comments about the land contamination, which our land contamination officer commented on. So it's further information, which is very helpful. That means that the contaminated land officer has recommended a rewording of condition 4. I shan't go through it all in detail because it's a very long condition, but in effect, they provided some of the information up front that the land contamination officer wanted. So if members do approve it, if they could delegate, agree to the changing of the wording of that condition as well, then that would be helpful.
Right, thank you. Right, Mrs. Shaw, could you sum up, please?
Yes, members. You have a motion to approve before you with the conditions as listed, also with the amendment to that contaminated land condition 4 to be delegated to officers to redraft, and completion of a section 106 agreement to secure provision of the on-site affordable housing and management of the on-site open space. So when your name is called, please would you indicate whether you support the motion to approve, whether you're against the motion to approve, or whether you're abstaining from the vote. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Brown.
Support.
Councillor Chamberlain.
Support.
Councillor Davey.
Support.
Councillor De Sarum.
Support motion to approve with all the conditions, including the additions put on.
Councillor Gazzard.
Support.
Councillor Howe.
Support.
Councillor Key.
Support.
Councillor McLaughlin.
Support.
Councillor Pook.
Support.
Councillor Pratt.
Support.
Councillor Skinner.
Support.
Councillor Whibley.
Support.
Councillor Woodward.
Support.
Councillor Ragg.
Support.
Thank you. That motion has been carried.
Thank you. Right. Now we move to, when I can get it on my screen, item 12. We go back to 20/1258, full application, page 176, Lower Southmore Farm, Bramford Speak. And we have two speakers, Sonia Brunton and Councillor Alan Birmingham. Are they in the meeting, please?
No, not yet.
Chair, I've spoken to both the speakers. They're both on their way. One of them will be dialing in by telephone, but they're joining now.
Okay, we'll give them a moment to join the meeting. We have somebody dialing in.
Chair, that will be Sonia Brunton dialing in by telephone.
Thank you.
Alan Birmingham just dialed in on Zoom.
Right. Are they connected yet?
They're both in the meeting, Chair.
Thank you. Welcome to the meeting, Sonia Brunton and Councillor Birmingham. You'll have 3 minutes each to speak, and you'll be told 30 seconds before your time is up. So over to Mr. Rose to present his report, please.
Thank you, Chair. So yeah, we're at a site called Lower Southmoor Farm, Brampton Speak, and it's an application to replace a barn that has been granted consent under the prior approval process to be agricultural barn to be converted to 2 dwellings, and then they may want to instead of building that out, they want to build 2 separate dwellings instead. So hopefully you can see on the screen the dotted outline. So that's the outline of the agricultural building that benefits from the Class Q consent to go to 2 dwellings, and then you can see on the screen the 2 dwellings that are proposed as part of this application. And this application's here because it's contrary to the view of the ward member. So as I say, we've got the dotted outline of the building that was converted, which was converted into a 4 and 5 bed properties, and then we've got the 2 dwellings here, again a 4 and 5 bed property. So these are the floor plans proposed for the new dwellings, both 2 stories, so ground floors and first floors, as I say, 4 and 5 beds, and these are the elevations of those. You can see stone, timber, cladding, and some render to those properties. And this is the Class Q consent, the one that we had to grant under the prior approval. So you can see the footprint and layout of the dwellings and the extent of the curtilage, which was very tightly constrained by that consent. And this is the building that was subject to the Class Q. So an agricultural building, but with quite an industrial appearance, and this was a conversion, so insertion of windows and doors into that building to create the 2 properties. And these are photos of that agricultural building that they've got consent to convert to the 2 dwellings and what they want to replace with this application. So as I say, we had to grant that prior approval for the conversion to 2 dwellings, and that's building in front of you there has got a footprint of about 450 square meters in total. The new proposal has got a square meters of virtually the same, or about 17 square meters more, but that's over 2 floors. So in effect, rather than a ground floor footprint coverage of 450 square meters, we're down to 235. Which I think you can see in those plans. As I said, there's render, stone and timber cladding proposed to the new dwellings, and we've got this situation that we come across a lot now where the applicants got this fallback position of being able to implement the consent there for the conversion of the building to 2 dwellings, and the High Court have said that we need to consider that as a material consideration when further applications come in. There's no restriction on the existing barn to prevent that from us having approved that prior approval consent. And we've also got policy H6 that lends some support to the replacement of dwellings in the countryside. So we have to assess the visual impact of this. The appearance is different. So you can see that we've got 2 houses proposed here as opposed to the conversion of a barn. So there's a decision to be made by members on whether they feel that the visual impact, the change that's going to happen as a result of this application, is that beneficial, in which case we should support it? Is it neutral, in which case we should probably support the application? Or is it harmful, in which case, if you think it's more harmful visually than the fallback position, then we may be able to, or you could refuse permission on the basis of the visual harm. You'll see in the report the officer's view is that the design's appropriate. These new dwellings look like converted barns. They're to a quite high standard of design. There's suitable materials proposed. Grasscrete is proposed to the parking area, to the front of the dwellings where they get their access. It's a reduction in the footprint, as you can see on the screen there, and they result in similar ridge heights of dwellings. And you'll also see in the report that officers' view is that the existing building is quite industrial in nature, and it's going to be quite a contrived design and arguably alien in that context of having 2 dwellings in that converted barn. You'll see one of the changes from this application is that garden areas get extended around the houses to provide larger garden areas. Whilst that extends into the countryside further, there's no particular harm, no loss of a significant amount of any agricultural land, but we can remove PD rights to ensure that no bulky buildings will go into those gardens. So officers are supporting the proposal as it's considered that the 2 dwellings proposed are an improvement over the design of the conversion of the barn, or at least that there's no harm, no further harm from the proposal, and that the visual amenity of the area is acceptable. And this is particularly as there's no highway safety concerns, residential amenity concerns, or any other harm that we can find occurring for the proposal. So given the fallback they've got, and given that we as officers feel that the design is an improvement over the conversion of the barn, we are recommending approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, Sonia Brunton, would you like to begin your speech?
Sonia, you might need to press *6 to unmute your phone.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. I think the application for 2 dwellings, they are of considerable size in this situation, and feel it is an infringement of the agricultural site. The site is outside the village settlement and therefore classed as open countryside. And with this in mind, I think the appraisal of the development contravenes the National Planning Policy Framework on decisions avoiding the development of homes in the open countryside. The applicant has clearly tried to use sustainability as the main appraisal for the redevelopment, and hasn't really considered the chapter on making decisions on rural housing. I don't believe that any of the 5 circumstances for building isolated homes in the countryside apply. I'm sure you're all aware of those, so I won't read them out. So there aren't any special circumstances, I think, under the National Planning Policy Framework that would allow for development in this situation. The size of the dwellings doesn't really reflect the local demand to create a mixed and balanced community. The majority of houses in the parish are already unaffordable for those with a lower budget and who wish to live in the countryside. So for sustainable development in rural areas, I think housing should be located where it will enhance or maintain the vitality of the rural community, which I don't think this will do. The revised plans, I appreciate that the footprint overall is smaller than the existing building, but they have gained and made them larger by achieving this by putting 2 stories in. I'm not sure the relevance of the fallback position, I think, is quite questionable in this situation. The applicant already stated that he had that the building was not lending itself to a residential space and was visually intrusive within the landscape. So I'm not sure that applying for the Class Q, he has any intention of carrying out that conversion under the Class Q.
30 seconds remaining.
The area itself is 4 times the curtilage of the current agricultural Class Q approval, and therefore is encroaching into the open countryside. And it's felt that whilst the building is bigger already, that the roof profile is shallower and more aesthetically pleasing than the steeper roof pitch of the proposed 2 separated buildings.
3 minutes.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Birmingham here. Just in summary, to support the comments that Sonia Brunton has made, and I won't go over repeating them. To add a couple of further thoughts from Bramford Speak Council, a major concern for the council has been the lack of engagement in the process from the developer, and what appears to be a means to circumvent Class Q approval that's been granted, to have deliberately looked intentionally all the time to go down the route of having two very large and, as Mrs. Brunton has said, unaffordable to the development of the village of large properties. Also, we believe as a council that in terms of the Class Q, this property that's currently on place in terms of the barn is not in disrepair. It can be built out, and it would be far more beneficial and not offer any real betterment if the developer stayed with the idea of having some attached housing as opposed to detached housing. The council's main comments are summarised in the two consultation reports that we have submitted. I don't propose to read through those again, other than to say that we are not supportive of the proposal to take out and build two very large unaffordable detached properties in open countryside. Thank you.
Right, I'm sorry I got called away for that. Right, we don't, do we have Councillor King? Hello?
Councillor Birmingham here. I understand that Councillor King is unavailable, and that's part of the reason why I'm sitting on the call and in essence covering for him.
Okay, so I'm sorry about that. Somebody was at the door. Right then, can I open it up then to committee to speak, please? And we have first Councillor De Sarum.
Thank you, Chair. I've been listening very intently to this debate, and I find myself in sympathy with the parish council. But for me, I've got three reasons which I would go along with officer recommendations. Well, the first reason that I find is that there is, as mentioned, policy support under policy H6, so that does exist. There is, according to the report, no further visual harm, as was demonstrated on page 185. And it said that we have a fallback position as well. It also talks about, or Mr. Rose has talked about the high standard design and the use of suitable materials. So, and there's a reduction in the footprint. So it is, for me, I do find myself every bit in sympathy for it, but I hear what we've had to say in the report, namely that because they've got this fallback position, it is quite clear that they would perhaps be able to revert back to that if we were to refuse. So with my hand on my heart, I say I'm deeply in sympathy with it. However, I'd like to propose approval in line with the recommendation for the three reasons that I outlined to you earlier, Chair.
Thank you. We have a proposal. Do we have a seconder, please?
Yes, Chair, I'll second that one, Councillor Sarah Chamberlain.
Thank you, Councillor Chamberlain. Right, next we have Councillor Whibley.
Hi, thank you, Chair. Yeah, the building as it stands is pretty ugly. And looking at the fallback position and in the documentation that we got with our agenda, it appears to me as if it's almost a very sort of dishonest way of getting planning permission granted for something different to what you initially applied for. You get the hard work out of the way by getting permission to change the building, and then this is the fallback position when you sort of aim to build something that looks a little better. And I don't know, it seems like it's not an entire, I have to choose my words carefully. It's not the most straightforward way of getting planning permission for a site. I think that's a nice way of putting it. But I have to say that the buildings that are proposed look much better than the one that's there at the moment. So I think I would be minded to, and I have every sympathy, as Councillor De Sarum said, I have every sympathy with the principle. There's something that, it's not as kind of open as maybe it seems, but yeah, I think I will support recommendation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Whibley. Councillor Key.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I mean, the thing is, I mean, it was said that the applicant wasn't happy about applying for this, but you could quite see the reason why now, because this is what has happened. First of all, I think the design is awful. Going on to the larger house, if that was applied for on its own in the open countryside, would we entertain it? No, of course we wouldn't, because it would be sporadic development. And he's got the fallback there to actually come into it. That house there, the large one, the one at the top of the picture, would never, if a farmer actually wanted a second dwelling on his farm for a worker or himself, a house of that size would never be allowed to be built. So I just cannot see how we can agree to this with the actual situation, because what we're doing is we're allowing the conversion of the building for one house and a complete new development for the other one. So I'm sorry, I can't support this application.
Thank you. Councillor Howe.
Thank you. I need to pick apart Councillor Key's argument there. They have permission for 2 properties. It might look like a shed or an industrial unit, but they have permission for 2 properties in the open countryside. Now, planning inspectors have done this quite a few times. They reason there are 2 properties there because they can be built out quite easily and everything else. And our local plan allows demolition of a property and a new rebuild. And that is exactly what the process they're following. We might not like it, but that is the process. And that is the process the planning inspectorate will take. So the decision then is what is the harm of these buildings over the existing building, which is 2 homes in effect. So you've got 2 for 2, so 2 properties. And I must say, compared to the industrial building that is there, these look far better and probably sit in the rural character and nature far better. I get where Councillor Key is coming from, and you're right. If a farmer didn't have a barn spare and wanted to build a new house, he would be looked at very strongly and resisted to the best he could unless he can prove the need. This isn't in the same case. They already have 2 homes there effectively, although not built, but they have the permission. They're demolishing the 2 homes and they're building 2 new ones, which our policies firmly allow and has been proved by planning inspectors no end of times up and down the country. It is fully in conformity with the NPPF. It is in conformity, unfortunately, with our local plan. And we have to only then go on the aesthetics and the extra land take of the gardens. And again, our officers quite rightly assess both as acceptable. So we have no real chance. We have to accept this.
Thank you, Councillor Howe. Councillor Davey.
Well, I agree that the amended design, which we can see at the moment, is an improvement on a conversion of a barn. To my mind, the barn itself is completely unsuitable for conversion. I know it's been deemed to be suitable for conversion, but I'm not sure. I certainly wouldn't want to live in it. It just seems it's an abuse of the permitted development rights to build 2 large homes in the open countryside, and it completely flies in the face of all our other policies on development in the countryside. I'm sure Councillor Howe is absolutely right that we've got no choice. But I really hope that government are taking notice of this, if it is the law of unintended consequences, that this kind of permitted development is being, to my mind, the word abuse is not too strong, because they're simply relying on the fallback position, which I cannot imagine they ever intended to carry out. But if this goes to appeal, as Councillor Howe has said, the inspectors are well versed in this now and they'll simply allow it. But I can't support it because I just feel that it's wrong.
Thank you, Councillor Davey. And as we've already spoken earlier about this, it is government policy and our hands are tied. Councillor Skinner.
Thank you, Chair. Well, Councillor House spoke absolutely correctly, of course, and Chair, when we as you just pointed out, just to steal my thunder slightly, was that we've just had, was it 2 or 3 applications that we've been to appeal that have been overturned? We don't want to see that happen again. In this particular case, I shall be supporting the application, regardless of what people deem to think is the rights and wrongs of it. Policies are policies. They are where they are. They're following the planning rules and laws, and that's the way it is. And that's life moves on. And I shall be supporting this because on the basis that if we don't, I absolutely feel we will lose this on appeal. Thank you.
Yeah, as much as we might not like it, and I know some feel very strongly about it, if it went to appeal, I believe, we're sure to lose it. Councillor Woodward.
Thank you, Chair. As the officer's report has set out, the Court of Appeal case, that's quite a binding level of hearing, which says that there is the fallback position, and if the fallback position actually shows a bit of a contrived development, I mean, it does look like a factory sort of building in the wrong place if that was housing. So I think the present application shows a more sort of comprehensive and coherent, much more pleasing visual, even though we would not have granted this had it been a straight to this position. So I feel obliged to follow the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Right, Mrs. Shaw, can you sum up, please?
Yes, Chair. Members, you have with this one 2 elements to the motion. You have the motion to adopt the appropriate assessment forming part of the report and approval with the conditions as listed. If you would please, when your name is called, indicate whether you're in support of the motion to approve, against the motion to approve, or whether you're abstaining from the vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Brown.
Reluctantly support.
Councillor Chamberlain.
Support.
Councillor Davey.
I haven't done this in 18 months on this committee, but I'm going to abstain.
Thank you. Councillor De Saram.
Support and adopt with all conditions, reluctantly.
Councillor Gazzard.
Reluctantly support.
Councillor Howe.
Reluctantly support.
Councillor Key.
Against.
Councillor McLaughlin.
Reluctantly support.
Councillor Pook.
Support.
Councillor Pratt.
Support.
Councillor Skinner.
Support.
Councillor Whibley.
Reluctantly support.
Councillor Woodward.
Support.
Councillor Ragg.
Support.
Thank you. The motion has been carried.
Thank you. Members, I wonder whether it might be worth writing to our MPs with our concerns. I don't know what you think about that, or should we take that to another committee?
Chair, if I could.
Yes, Councillor Howe.
Actually, the problem is with our local plan, which allows demolition of a building, house, and then a replacement of a new house. If you take that out of our local plan, although I'm not entirely sure how you could, that's where the issue is, because they have a property in the open countryside, they're replacing it with one. So, but I would suggest more our local plan than national, because they won't change.
No, I'm thinking of the PDQ consent, prior consent, that's all.
My argument, Chairman, was the fact that, yes, okay, demolish one and replace it, but not put up another one as well.
So they already had 2, David.
Okay.
Yes,
Thank
but it's
you.
one building.
Okay. Now, right. Well, things are where they are, and there's little we can do about it. Agenda item 9, application 20/1855, full application, land adjoining the workshop, Longmeadow Road, Limpston, page 145. And we have the board member, Councillor Young, to speak. So, Councillor Young, you will have 5 minutes after we've heard Mr. Rose present his report. Thank you. Mr. Rose.
Thank you. So this is a property called the Workshop at Limpston, and it's an application for the installation of a sewage treatment plant underground to an authorised dwelling that was won on appeal. I'll give you the history to that. So we've got the dwelling up here off of a private access, and basically they want to put a treatment plant under the ground here that would then discharge once treated into the brook. There's a long history to this site, which it's been unfortunate, I suppose. The applicant has gone from getting consent for a garage that was part of the house and tied to that house to getting a garage building not related to that house. Then they came in to convert the garage building to a dwelling a number of times, and we refused. And then eventually the applicant won on an appeal to convert that garage into a dwelling. And they're now that's been done and they've converted it, they've now come in with this application for the sewage treatment plant because they're saying that they can't connect to the mains sewer. And this application is before members because it was referred from the chair delegation due to the high level objection and the pollution issues raised. You'll see in the report that there's about 50 letters of objection that have come in opposed to this application.
Take over the chair. Yeah, have to be.
So just in terms of the location, you see that on the screen there. This is the underground treatment plant that's proposed. And so this is the wider area. So we've got Longmeadow Road that runs up here. We've got the private access down to this property, and the treatment plant would be here. And you can see the Wootton Brook that runs along here and that it would discharge into. And I'll come back to these plans in a minute. So this is the aerial, this is the garage, this is where it's proposed, and this is the private access that goes up. Now, since the report, there's been one further letter of objection that's been received that says that the report, our report underplays the range of objections, that there are a number of points raised by objections, and it's recognised by all parties that connections to the main sewer should be made if at all possible. It states that the agent, the architect, doesn't have specialist knowledge of drainage matters, and draws attention to 2 letters of objection from engineers that have been received during the course of the application that suggest that connection to the main sewer is possible. So I will I'll just run on to mention that situation. So the applicant's case is that the main sewer is up here by the main road. So sort of probably getting on for 50 odd meters from the application property. In itself, that's possible to connect to. There's no reason why not, given the distance. It's uphill is their second case, so you would need to pump to be able to get the sewer back or to connect to that sewer. Again, that is possible. It's not unusual to have a system that pumps uphill. But they're saying that they would need potentially multiple pumps and changes for inspection. Again, technically that is possible to achieve. But then it comes to the 2 points they raised that that we as officers feel means that we have come to the recommendation of approval. So the first one is to get from this dwelling to connect into the main sewer, you've got to cross land in more than one ownership, and ownership that isn't the applicant's. So you can see the difficulty that there would be in order to be able to put that pumper mechanism in, have the chambers, and then potentially have inspection of that if needed. And the other concern is that to connect to the sewer, you would have to cross the culverted brook that runs down this lane. So somehow you would have to get under or over the brook that's in that lane, which again is going to cause construction problems. So because of that, making that construction very difficult, we've looked at the local plan, and policy EN 19 says quite rightly that where possible, you should connect to the FOW, you should connect to the main system. And it says that a private system should be as a last resort and where it's not otherwise possible. So in this case, I think those ownership issues and the culverted brook, and less so those other issues I raised about the distance, are reasons why it would be very difficult for the applicant to connect to the main sewer in this case. We have run that past building control, our building control department, to have a look at, to check the arguments put forward for the applicant. They agree that the merits to the applicant's case, and have said that if a building regs application came in for the private treatment plant, it would satisfy their criteria. So we have had somebody else look at the applicant's case. So we've accepted the need for this private system for those reasons. The second point of concern get raised by residents is that the treatment plant is then discharging into the brook, and obviously they are concerned about safety and pollution issues that arise from that. I should say there's no visual harm from that. It is the pollution that's the concern. And you'll see from the report that the Environment Agency have been consulted on this. They raised no objection. They've been out to the site. They've assessed the discharge. They've assessed what's been installed, and the applicant's got I think it's about 3 letters, emails from the Environment Agency confirming that what's been constructed they are satisfied with, and that there's no pollution from the discharge. So in light of that, we think the case has been made for a private system. Understand the concerns of the local residents given the history of the site, and given that the comments from building control and from the Environment Agency, who aren't raising objection to the proposal, we're recommending approval. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Chris. Unfortunately, our chair, Councillor Ragg, has had to leave the meeting, so I'll be taking over this afternoon as your vice chair, Councillor Sarah Chamberlain. Thank you very much, Mr. Rose, for that. And I believe we now have ward member Councillor Jeff Jung to speak.
Thank you, Chair. On the face of it, why would we be wanting to allow any sewage outflow into a stream within a village, which then flows into the estuary with its highly protected status? 50 local residents also thought that this was not a suitable solution. However, the expert consultees have supported this application. Therefore, I understand the dilemma our officers have on this tricky application. So I'll leave it to your good selves to decide. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jung. Next, we'll go over to ward members. So first I have committee members. First I have Councillor Skinner.
Thank you, Chair. And might I say that my initial thought was, as Mr. Rose was speaking, was that if there was some due consideration to go into the mains drains, that's of course what we should be giving it. If we needed more time, I was going to suggest a deferral of this until we haven't sorted this out. It's obviously clear now that as Mr. Rose was speaking, in the way that the application has gone on, and from what I've read in the reports, that we cannot go against what is the experts' advice in the way that the Environment Agency, I would assume that we would all want to see it going into the mains, but because of the circumstances, that's not likely to happen. And that the advice given by the Environment Agency is they are going to be happy with this outcome, in the fact that clean water will be coming through this Clychester and coming out into the brook, and then subsequently into the estuary. On that position, I don't think there's much more else to say, really, to be honest. I'm going to go for a recommendation of approval. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Skinner. Do we have a seconder for that?
Yes, Councillor Howe.
Thank you very much, Councillor Howe. Okay, next I have to speak Councillor Ollie Davey.
Thank you, Chair. I've got one of the objections in front of me, and it kind of looks as though a lot of the information that this has been based on has come from the applicant. I may be wrong, and Mr. Rose can perhaps correct me here. But they say the applicant has not demonstrated that connection to the main sewer is not possible. They've merely speculated that the public sewer is 90 centimetres deep, which apparently is a minimum depth. The sewer could actually be deeper than that, which would then make connection easier. They haven't provided a plan showing the location of the public network and where connection would be possible. He says a reference to natural fall is not one he's heard of in 45 years as a specialist in water and waste engineering. And they're clearly wrong in implying the size of the pipes and the amount of fall that would be possible. So he feels there's a number of flaws in the information that's been provided and a lack of information on the actual location and the viability of the public sewer. And I would like to suggest that this is deferred for a more accurate appraisal by a third party, and perhaps a requirement on the applicant to demonstrate that a complete survey of this area and the viability of connection has been carried out.
Thank you very much, Councillor Davey. Next to speak, we have Councillor Kathy McLaughlin.
Thank you, Chair. I think this is probably a question to Mr. Rose. When we were talking about the Environment Agency, there's a lot of they're giving the applicant advice, lots of advice. What I want to know that there's many parts of advice in this for the applicant to adhere to or to look into. How do we ensure that the applicant is actually doing this? Because it's quite serious stuff. So how could we guarantee, please, that the applicant is playing their part in this?
Thank you, Councillor McLaughlin. Mr. Rose, did you want to come back on that at all?
Yeah, I'll come back on that. So the Environment Agency, the facility's already in, and the Environment Agency have already inspected it. They've already checked that it's working and checked the outflow. So that element's already been done, and they're happy with it. Obviously, going forward, the applicant's got a responsibility to ensure it carries on working, and if it does fail, then the Environment Agency will be the body that can then go and take action against them. Just going back to Councillor Davies' points, we have considered those letters carefully that he was looking at, which is why in my presentation I was saying that the issues in terms of the distance to the sewer, the fact it might be uphill and having multiple changes of direction or chambers, I didn't think in themselves were enough reason for the applicant to be able to argue for this treatment plant. But we have checked with building control, and we know the sewer is located up here, this part of the site, and it is difficult to argue with the fact that the applicant doesn't own the route up to connect to the sewer, that there's more than one ownership involved that they'd have to cross, and the difficulties that would create, and then the difficulties of getting across the culverted brook. So I think the members of the public are correct in terms of being a bit skeptical about a couple of the reasons put forward as to why the applicant can't do it in terms of the distance and the slopes. But I think those latter two reasons are solid and has been checked by building control. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rose. Next, we have Councillor Joe Wibley.
Hi there. Yeah, this is another example of where I kind of feel like our hands are tied, and another example of retrospective planning permission being a bit of a problem. When you look at some of the objections from the parish and town council. They say that if it was stated from the outset in the application for turning it into a residential unit, if it was stated at that point that they would have to install a Clargester, which I imagine is the name of the sewage system, things would have been different. It wouldn't have been passed, I would imagine, or mitigation would have been made before we got to this stage. It kind of beggars belief that people can operate in this manner. But I think if at this point, if the expert advice is that it's the only thing to do, then I can't see that we can do anything other than accept the recommendation of the officers. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Whibley. Next, I have Councillor David Key to speak.
No, everything's been said, my dear. Thank you.
No worries. So next on the list, I have Councillor Steve Gazzard.
Thank you, Chair. It's a question to Mr. Rose, please, if I may. Forgive me if I've missed it in a report, but will the Environment Agency be undertaking regular checks to make sure that this unit is working properly, or are they just going to wait until Joe Public rings in saying there's a problem, please?
I don't know the answer to that, if I'm honest, Councillor Gazzard. My guess would be that I doubt they have the resources to be going out there every month and checking it. I'd like to think that they would be checking the brook at certain intervals, but I don't think that they will have the resources to go out and check this on a monthly or 6 monthly basis. So I suppose if I were to guess the answer to your question, I assume it's going to be that they would react to any pollution incident if it occurred.
Could I just come back, please, Chair?
Of course, yes.
Thank you for that, Mr. Rose. Is there any possibility that we could just put a condition in, or a recommendation, whatever we want to call it, that we, as this is a brand new system, that we would like the Environment Agency to check it on a regular basis? Would we be able to do that?
Through you, Chair, we can't put a condition on it because we can't force them to do it. I can certainly write to them, and I can certainly ask them, express the concerns about the concerns about pollution in the brook, and ask that they keep a close eye on it. I can certainly do that.
Through you, Chair, could I suggest that we do that?
Yes, of course, Mr. Rose, if we could do that.
Yep. Thank you.
Can I come in on this point?
Yep, you're next. I just note that Councillor Howell's had his hand up. I was just going to go to Councillor Brown and then Councillor Woodward and come back to Councillor Howell at the end, as he was the seconder to come in, if that's okay. So Councillor Brown, if you'd like to come in now, that would be great.
Thank you. I'm on private drainage where I am because we cannot get, well, we can get into the main drains, but because the number of easements you need to get up to the main drains, it creates a massive problem. So we've got a license to discharge from the Environment Agency, which these people have to get, and the Environment Agency check it regularly to make you're compliant with all the rules. So, I mean, there's no need for Mr. Rose to write to them. They do it automatically. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Next, I have on the list Councillor Woodward.
Thank you, Chair. I don't really see how we can go against the experts' advice already. There was a comment made that this is a sewage outflow, but it is treated. And I do notice that the Environment Agency, it's acceptable to discharge to a watercourse without any detrimental impact, and that they confirm there's no pollution. So I don't really see how we could object if there is no pollution. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Woodward. So next we move on to Councillor Mike Howell.
Thank you very much, Chair. It was just to pick up on a point Councillor Whibley said. how it got planning permission is rather a long and convoluted story, as Mr. Rose has indicated. But the way the sewage drainage is, this method is still acceptable. It might be the least acceptable of all the methods, but it is acceptable, and as such wouldn't stop the planning permission in the first place. But it does rely, and there are loads of these around, it does rely on the owner maintaining and looking after it. The EEA are fairly keen on sewage pollution, and they do check river streams and everything else. And as such, there is a good chance if someone doesn't conform with it, they will get caught, particularly if you've got local residents, as I believe there's a footpath that follows down this way as well, if I remember correctly, keeping a close eye on things at the same time. So it's not ideal, it's not brilliant, it's not perfect, but it is an acceptable method, and the EEA, who are the licensing and enforcing authority, are in agreement. So we have very little choice, I'm afraid to say. So happy to second it.
Thank you very much, Councillor Howe. I see no more blue hands from anybody. So if we go over to Mrs. Shaw to sum up.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, members, you have one motion before you now, and that is to approve with the conditions as listed. If, when your name is called, you would please indicate you are in support of the motion to approve, you're against the motion to approve, or whether you're abstaining from the vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Brown.
Support.
Councillor Chamberlain.
Support.
Councillor Davey.
Reluctantly support.
Councillor De Saram.
Or the motion to approve.
Councillor Gazzard.
Support.
Councillor Howe.
Support.
Councillor Key.
Support.
Councillor McLaughlin.
Support.
Councillor Pook.
Support.
Councillor Pratt.
Support.
Councillor Skinner.
Support.
Councillor Whibley.
Unenthusiastically support.
Thank you. And finally, Councillor Woodward.
Support.
Thank you. I can confirm that motion has been carried.
Thank you very much. That brings us on to agenda item 14, application number 20/2082/full, Keynes Park Farm, Orliscombe, page 222. I would like to welcome to the meeting Martin Summers. If I can hand over to Chris to sum up. Mr. Rose, sorry.
Chris, if you're speaking, I think you might be muted.
Sorry. Start again. So construction of an agricultural building and associated yard. This is the existing farm here, and this is the site where the new agricultural building and yard's proposed. The application is in front of you because it's a member of staff, and the site itself is a short distance from Orliscombe. You can see the lane there, and just move on. So this is the site. You'll see from the photos enclosed by hedging and trees boundaries, and you can see the relationship with the existing buildings. So you can see the trees, hedges to be retained. This is the yard and the concrete hard standing, and then a link through to the existing buildings. Typical agricultural building, timber walls, 8 meters to the ridge. And this is the access that goes, the point the access that goes through, and this is the field in question. So down the end here will be the agricultural building. You can see the boundary hedges and the trees that are all to be retained. So as you can see from the report, policy D7 of the local plan supports new agricultural buildings, subject to there being an agricultural need. In this case, all the existing buildings on the farm are in commercial use or caravan storage. So they've diversified the farm buildings, they're all in use, and they want to come back to farming beef. and there's no suitable buildings on the holding for that at the moment. So they've got about 39 acres, I believe, and they rent some more. So I think the justification is there for this new agricultural building. They're diversifying their farm activities, and there's no existing buildings that can be used for it. The site's in the AONB, but hopefully you can see from the photo, the site is well screened. The building will be well integrated into the field and to the adjacent farm buildings. The screening, you can see the hedges and trees, as I said, will be retained, and it's a suitable design. It appears functional as it is as an agricultural building. There's no other dwellings close enough to be affected by the proposal, and you'll see from the report that there are no other concerns. So in light of that, the application is recommended for approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rose. I'd like to invite Mr. Summers to speak.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chairman. Can I speak now, yeah?
Yes, of course.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chairman and members, for allowing us to speak. Just one thing, we're not in the area of the ANOB, the ANOB is the other side of the Holland-Clumpton Road, so we're not in the ANOB in our farm at the moment, just to confirm that. I'd just like to take this opportunity to recap that obviously our application is before you because Jenny is employed by the council. We have run a storage business from Keynes Park Farm near Holland since 2005, and I have lived here all my life. It's our family farm, and I am the fourth generation of the family to live here. With the growth of the storage business over the last 3 years, we have been able to invest back into Keynes Park Farm, and now we're at a point where the success of the storage business can help us underpin the restarting of agricultural activities at Keynes Park Farm. Being a farmer at heart, with 50 acres at my disposal, it now seems a good idea for me to get back to my farming roots. I would like to be able to farm the land myself in conjunction with the storage business and not rely on rental from other big farms in the area. I believe we can achieve this, and having one modern shed and a yard area, I can deliver this. The application will allow our family to remain in agriculture and secure agricultural use for our farm going forward. Something which of course is dear to my heart. I am not into intensive farming, and I prefer something which is simpler and more animal friendly way of farming, whilst keeping the fields in a good state of repair for the future generations, which I hope will follow me on. We believe that with your support, as you did with the storage site 3 years ago, we can maintain Keynes Park Farm as a working farm and a diversified business. Overall, we are pleased with the planning officer's report, and it also confirms that the proposal complies with your planning policies and recommends approval. The planning conditions that the report suggests are of course acceptable to us both. And once again, thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Summers. Next, we have the ward members, Councillor Brown to speak, and then Councillor Key.
Well, yes, I mean, like you say, this is only in front of members because the person works for the council. So I recommend it for approval.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brown. Do we have a seconder?
Yeah, I will.
Thank you, Councillor Whibley.
You're welcome.
I'd already seconded it in actual fact. Yes. Yes, I mean, I've no problem in this. I mean, the applicant is wanting to get back into farming again. And in actual fact, I mean, if his wife hadn't worked for the council, it would probably be gone through without any problems at all. So yes, I fully support this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Key. Next, we go to committee members. I have Councillor Skinner to speak next.
Nothing much to add, Chair. I'm going to support this application. I think I'll leave it to them. It's all been said. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Skinner. And I see no more blue hands, so I'd like to pass over to Mrs. Shaw.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, members, you only have one motion before you, that is to approve subject to the conditions listed. So again, when your name is called, please would you indicate your support for the motion to approve, whether you're against the motion to approve, or whether you're abstaining from the vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Brown.
Support.
Councillor Chamberlain.
Support.
Councillor Davey.
Sorry, bit of trouble unmuting there. Despite being a vegetarian, I'll support this.
Thank you. Councillor De Sarum.
Support for the motion to approve subject to conditions.
Councillor Gazzard.
Support.
Councillor Howe.
Support.
Councillor Key.
Support.
Thank you. Councillor McLaughlin.
Support.
Thank you. We just received apologies from Councillor Pook. He's had to leave the meeting. So I'll move on to Councillor Pratt.
Support.
Councillor Skinner.
Very enthusiastically, with all the enthusiasm that one can draw, to support.
Thank you. Councillor Whibley.
As a lover of meat, I will support.
And finally, Councillor Woodward.
Well, similar to Councillor Ollie Davey, I'm also a vegetarian, but despite that, I will approve.
Lovely. Thank you. So I can confirm that motion has been carried.
Thank you very much. We move on now to agenda item 15, application number 20/1531/LBC, Jasmine Cottage, The Strand, Limpstone. I would like to welcome to the meeting Matthew Dalton Aram. But first of all, if we could hear from Mr. Rose. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So this relates to Jasmine Cottage in the Strand, and it's another application that's before you because the applicant is related to a member, so not a member of staff, but to a member. And it's an application for listed building consent, and it's a grade 2 building. The proposal is quite simple, and it's to replace a ground floor passageway that's off the side of the property here to create a downstairs wet room and bedroom for the occupier. So if I just follow through the plans, so we've got a little alleyway outbuilding here just to the side, and the proposal is to convert that. And so you go from this utility area here, and you can see kitchen and joint dining lounge area. We go through, the lounge gets separated from the dining room to form a bedroom, and the utility area gets a wet room provided in there. Now, this is identical to a consent that we granted in 2017 that hasn't been implemented. So this has already been found to be acceptable previously. And you'll see from the report that the conservation are happy with the proposal, having supported it the previous time. No concerns with regard to the design of the extension proposed, and there's no historic features or fabric within the building that are to be removed. So the works are sympathetic to the listed building as per that 2017 consent, and as I said before, will enable the occupier to be able to continue living there and benefit from the downstairs bedroom and wet room area. So in light of all that, the application is acceptable and recommended for approval subject to conditions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rose. I'd like to invite Matthew Dalton Aram to speak. You will have 3 minutes to speak, and you will have a 30-second warning before the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. We're grateful for offer support for the proposal. As explained by Mr. Rose in the report, listed building consent was previously approved for the same works back in August of 2017. The application is made by Councillor Ingham's mother to make alterations to the existing building to adapt it to her needs. The works primarily comprise alterations to an existing ground floor extension and would facilitate a ground floor wet room and bathroom. Unfortunately, for various reasons, it has not been possible to commence the works within the requisite 3-year period that was previously allowed. Therefore, the application is resubmitted to provide an additional 3-year period in which to commence the works. We would concur with officers that the proposed alterations are relatively minor and would not harm the character, appearance or significance of the listed building. We would therefore respectfully request that members approve the application. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sorry, I'd like to go over to committee members now to speak. So we have Councillor David Key.
Thank you, Vice Chairman. Yes, I mean, as this is a renewal, I see no problem in this whatsoever. And so I'm fully prepared to put forward the recommendation of approval. Thank you.
Second, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Key and Councillor Howe. Next, we have Councillor Howe. Did you want to speak next?
No, I don't think there's anything else to say. You know, I think as is.
Thank you. So next I have Councillor Skinner to speak.
All done. I'm going to support. All been said. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gazzard.
Likewise, Chair.
Thank you very much. As I see no more blue hands, I shall hand over to Mrs. Shaw to sum up.
Thank you, Chair. Members, there is again only one element to this motion, and that is to approve with the conditions as listed. If you would please, when your name is called, indicate whether you support the motion to approve, whether you're against the motion to approve, or whether you are abstaining. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Brown.
Support.
Councillor Chamberlain.
Support.
Councillor Davey.
Support.
Councillor De Sarum.
Support the motion to approve with conditions as listed.
Councillor Gazzard.
Support.
Councillor Howe.
Support.
Councillor Key.
Support.
Councillor McLaughlin.
Support.
Councillor Pratt.
Support.
Councillor Skinner.
Support.
Councillor Whibley.
Support.
Councillor Woodward.
Support.
Thank you. I can confirm that motion carried.
Thank you very much, Wendy. That brings our meeting to an end, and I would like to thank everyone, including any members of the public watching online, for taking part. However, can I just remind all those present that the supporting officer will confirm when the meeting is no longer being recorded or going live, and until then your comments will be live to the public.